Oh, we missed you all so much. We missed you all. We're glad to be back. Chris, cool it down a little bit.
Oh,
I
the
thought,
Kirk Cousins money, man. Oh, my gosh.
Woo-wee! Hello,
Oh,
everybody.
crap.
Wow, what a day it's been already. What a 3 hours it has been. Welcome back. We missed you all. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Chris, and this is the Southside Beat.
I chose the wrong profession. I really should have become a quarterback in the NFL. That's what I should have been.
I should have been a place kicker. I always say that. Place kicker. Be a specialist. Go make listen, once you get past a certain point, like with all that money, you need it, obviously, at some point, and that's the market. But like you get enough of it when you do the specialist jobs.
$180 million over 4 years, man.
Panzer Trek Pete, member for 10 months. Thank you. And thank you all for rejoining us. A week off, a long week off.
It's been a week, man.
Chris took a vacation. I came back from the NFL Combine with a COVID-19 diagnosis. Not fun. Not fun. I was down and out for the count Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of last week, but started to feel better late last week. Back in the saddle today, and today is the start, unofficially, I suppose, of NFL free agency, as the day is known as legal tampering. The period
open negotiating period, or open negotiation period, I think is the proper term for it. But yeah, it's just fun. It's more fun to say legal tampering.
Right. So at noon Eastern today, that's when it all started, where teams were quote unquote allowed to start to speak to agents and to players who don't have agents about potentially joining their teams. And throughout the last 3 hours, if you look at the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com, lots of movement around the National Football League. Not so much for the Steelers, at least today.
Only one so far.
One move that came across the wire at about 11:30 Eastern p.m.
And here
last
goes
night.
Section. It's just.
And here we go. Let's ride. Russell Wilson, 1 year, $1.2 million to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Veteran minimum.
Mark, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I was Mark says glad I'm okay. I was out for the count Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Luckily, everything was relatively mild. I do have a heart issue I deal with, so I obviously have to be a little extra careful and take a little extra rest. So I did that last week, and we're all good now. But let's go. Russell Wilson, Chris.
Let's ride.
Let's ride indeed. 1 year, $1.2 million. Signed to be the competitor with Kenny Pickett by the time training camp arrives.
Yep.
And this is what it's going to be. Now, to be honest with you, I'm a little mixed on this. I'm a little mixed on this signing because, number one, for $1.2 million, let him fill the Gatorade coolers if he doesn't throw the football, if he's not starting a quarterback. Like, okay, $1.2 million, fine. I'm good with that. 1 year, okay, fine. Give Russell Wilson a chance to reclaim himself in a way, a chance to get a fresh start. Give Russell Wilson a chance at a new life in football, so to speak, while at the same time giving Kenny Pickett the proper kick in the arse that he needs to improve. And this is what, to me, it's all about, is Kenny Pickett. This is a true competitor for Kenny Pickett. Look, I understand that some might be under the belief that Russell Wilson wouldn't sign here if he didn't think he wasn't going to start. That logic makes some sense, but also maybe he read into the market. And this was the best opportunity he could afford.
Maybe he's just not confident in himself, too.
Obviously, that didn't get to that stage, as he only met with two teams. It was the Steelers and the Giants, after the Broncos informed him a week ago from today that he was going to be released. But to me, this is a proper kick in the pants to Kenny Pickett, saying, time to put up or shut up.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, I get it. But I have some longer-term questions about this move that I want to address later in the show. But your reaction, Chris?
Yeah, again, for the objective, non-narrative pushing anything stuff, from everything that I have been told, this is not an automatic signing. Wilson is not automatically supplanting Kenny Pickett. It also doesn't mean that Kenny Pickett is immune. This is supposed to be a competition at the absolute definition of the word, a competition. Now, everybody can say, oh, well, I don't believe you, or maybe they are, whoever's telling you that is telling you that and whatever, but they're really, and they may even say that in press conferences, but really it's Russell Wilson going to be the guy or whatever. I'm just saying that's what I've been told. I expect this to be a competition as of right now, because I'm just going to go off of what I've been told. I'm not going to sit here and try to play a mind game that might not even be a mind game.
No.
You know, and now if we get to training camp and Russell Wilson is taking 100% of the first team reps, then there's your answer. Then, okay, yeah, it wasn't a competition. But to say that that as of right now, it's kind of, you're just kind of drawing a conclusion based off of whatever you want to base that conclusion off of. In my opinion, I'm basing what I think off of what I'm being told. As far as when, the fit, I'm going to get in really deep detail on Russell Wilson's fit on the field. With this offense, with Arthur Smith's offense, that'll be in Chalk Talk this week on DKPittsburghSports.com.
That'll be a must read.
But I will like, I agree with you to a certain extent that this is a big, if they re-sign Mason Rudolph, I almost feel like, yeah, it's a competition, but Kenny's still kind of,
Kenny gets the leg up. Kenny gets the leg up.
It's almost like a status quo type situation because there's no new blood in the room. This is not new blood. This is, okay, even if he's, a shade of himself or 70% or 80% of what he was before, this is still Russell Wilson, a 9-time Pro Bowler, a guy who will get, I don't want to hear any arguments otherwise, a guy who will get consideration for the Hall of Fame.
Sure, I agree with that.
A super, I didn't say like future Hall of Famer undoubtedly. I'm just saying consideration for it at bare minimum. A guy who's won a ring, been to 2 Super Bowls, should have won a second if they just hand the ball to Marshawn. This is a serious message to Kenny. If it is true competition, this is a serious message to Kenny to be like, dude, we told you competition. This is the best we can get in terms of bang for our buck in terms of competition. If you can't win, seriously, at Russell Wilson's current stage of his career, if Kenny Pickett can't win the job in training camp or in preseason, he's not the guy.
That's it.
He's not the guy. And that's why I think that the Steelers still want to give Kenny Pickett every opportunity to be the guy. But they also need to have a contingency plan that in case Kenny goes into year 3 and continues to stay on this plateau we've seen for the first 2 seasons. And so there you go. $1.21 million veteran minimum for Russell Wilson. Even if we're getting 70 or 80% of who he used to be, it's still better quarterback play than what the Steelers have had for the last 2 years.
I agree with that. However, I still don't think this is a championship move. I don't think it's a championship quarterback room right now. Like I
depends on how the rest of the roster looks.
I fully agree with you on Russell Wilson's discussion as a Hall of Famer for what he did in Seattle. He had a awful 2022 in Denver, and last year was okay. Like he had
2022. You look at that compared to the quarterback play the Steelers got for the last 2 years, it's still an upgrade.
Sure, I agree with that. Yes, it is an upgrade, but an upgrade from the bottom. When it's not the top, an upgrade from the bottom, you're still average at best.
Yeah.
So look, I get it from that standpoint. I get it from the standpoint of money. I get it from the standpoint that it is dirt cheap. It costs the Steelers virtually nothing. I think between Wilson and Pickett, they're getting paid less than $5 million next year collectively. That's fine. And Lori says it here.
It's dirt cheap. Cheap for quarterback.
Lori says it here. This is a win now move. I think in the temporary it is. Win now as in 2024. This, to me, brings concerns for 2025. That's where this move red flags the hell out of me. Because, number one, it's a 1-year deal for Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. I've been consistent with the Mason Rudolph conversation that if they were going to bring Mason Rudolph back, I wanted it for 2. Not 1, not 3, not 4, not 5, 2 years. Because you have to decide, the Steelers have to decide 1 year from now, and we'll continue to reiterate this as much as we need to, whether they're going to retain Kenny Pickett for that 5th-year option. And that 5th-year option could be somewhere between 26 to 30 million when you look at the 5th-year options from this year's quarterback room. So look, the long-term gamble, so to speak, that is currently in the Steelers quarterback room is Kenny Pickett. If there is a long-term solution in that quarterback room, it is Kenny Pickett as of right now. Russell Wilson's not a long-term solution. Kenny Pickett is the only option to be a long-term solution. That gets cut off in August if he loses that training camp battle. If Kenny Pickett, to me, if Kenny Pickett loses the training camp battle to Russell Wilson in August, the Steelers are drafting a quarterback in 2025. That's all it tells me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it tells me. The upside to this is so low, in my opinion.
But
this is a short-sighted 1-year move, in my opinion.
No, I don't see it that way in particular, because if Kenny Pickett doesn't win the position battle in training camp, then to me, that tells me, okay, how can you be the guy if you can't even win a training camp battle against a guy who is so is that on the Steelers or is that on Kenny Pickett? To me, that's more on Kenny Pickett. Now, people are going to argue and be like, oh, well, it was because he was playing under Matt Canada. We didn't get to see what Kenny Pickett looked like under another coordinator or anything like that. And I think there's some merit to that argument, but how come that Mason Rudolph comes in? I understand it's not under Matt Canada, but it's still the same system. It's still the same playbook with minor tweaks made by Faulkner and Sullivan. How come Mason Rudolph is able to come in and play so well that even when Kenny Pickett gets healthy in the playoffs, they're like, no, thank you. Like,
sure.
To me, that's already a bad indictment on Kenny. You had 25 games to show something other than, hey, every now and then in the fourth quarter, he actually looks like a dude.
Sure.
I'm 13 touchdowns on 25 games. Like, again, if the people that are going to bang the drum for 0 touchdowns in an entire season for Deontay in 2022, then I'm going to bang the drum of 13 touchdowns in 25 games, because
sure.
that is horrible production from the quarterback play, in terms of quarterback play. Shoot, 25 touchdowns total over the past two seasons, I think it was, for the Steelers. 25 passing touchdowns. Russell Wilson had 26 last year. Like, and I'm sorry, the Steelers have a better running game, have better options for the running game than Denver does. And I would even say more dynamic passing. I'm not saying Denver doesn't have anything in the passing game or receiving game, but Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, I'm sorry, Russell Wilson will have weapons and he'll have a strong running game to complement that. I do. And Teresa actually made a good point earlier. I wanted to bring this up.
We're starring comments. We're putting comments to the
trying
side
to get as much
go
as we can.
Well. Yeah, we appreciate you all. You're bringing fire today. We love it.
Teresa says Denver was a really bad fit. Steelers are more Legion of Boom comparison. I do agree with that to a certain extent. I don't feel this does feel more like, okay, Russell Wilson's not going to be asked to be the guy the way he was going to be asked to be the guy in Denver. He can be more of a complementary piece because, okay, let's just call a spade a spade. The 2013 Seahawks won because of their defense.
Sure.
It's not saying that Russell Wilson didn't play a part in that. He did, and he deserved that ring, but that was an all-time great defense. They won because of that defense. And this feels more like that because the Steelers are same thing, defensive-minded head coach. The defense is the strength of the team. That's where the main focus is for this team. This feels more like that. And so how can Russell Wilson now fit into what the Steelers are going to do if he's the guy? Again, I'm still not completely convinced because I still think that Kenny Pickett is going to be given an opportunity to try to win the job. I'm not just outright saying, oh, Russell Wilson's going to be the guy.
Sure. By the way, and if we want to rope Justin Fields into this in a way, he has zero value right now. Just about. He has zero. His two best suitors, at least from the outside, the Steelers and the Falcons, just made quarterback moves within the last, 15 hours? They made moves with the Steelers getting Wilson, and now the Falcons paying big money up for Kirk Cousins. Think of it this way, too. Like, is it out of the realm of possibility that Fields is available for a day 3 pick and the Steelers take a flyer? Like, is that out of the realm of possibility now?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I
like,
think
what
so.
what if they go into camp, theoretically speaking, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, and I don't want this to become a huge thing yet. If they go into camp with Wilson, Pickett, Fields, and a day 3 draft pick at quarterback, that's not out of the realm of possibility yet because Fields' market is so low right now. Nobody's ponied up for him. If Justin Fields, the teams really wanted Justin Fields, Steelers included, by the way, they would have ponied up for Chicago's asking price, which sounds like it was somewhere in the realm of a first round, a second round draft pick. If that comes down to a day 3 pick, why the hell not take a flyer? At that stage, you're adding 2 quarterbacks who have starting experience You have 2 quarterbacks with starting experience at the cost of $1.2 million at a day 3 pick. Why not? At that stage, and that's all I'm getting at. I'm going to get to some of the comments here about this. And obviously,
there's a good one from Don here, real quick, that I just want to
go ahead.
Really, really quick.
Go ahead.
Don is right here. Steelers fans should hope Pickett wins the job, because that is a better solution for the Steelers long term.
Yes.
If this signing is the kick in the pants that Kenny Pickett needs to go from year 1, year 2, and then year 3 all the way up here, that's okay, great, because that's what the Steelers need. They need longevity and consistency at quarterback. They need quality play at quarterback, and they need to get it every single year. And the best way to do that is to draft a guy, develop him, where he becomes that guy. We just haven't seen enough of that in the first 2 seasons, where you can just go into year 3 and be like, "Yep, here are the keys to the car, Kenny." Like no ifs, ands, or buts. No, the Steelers are making this move because Kenny hasn't shown enough yet. They may have full faith in him, but they, have to have something just in case, Kenny just hasn't shown quite enough yet. So I do agree that if you're a person who's very excited about this signing, like signing Russell Wilson, like great, but you should root for Kenny to be the guy, to take that big step forward, because that is a better solution for not just 2024, but beyond. If he takes that step forward, there's just will he? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, Mike in Texas came in with this before the show started, long before the show started, and I think it's a fantastic comment. He says he feels bad for Mason Rudolph, like he got jerked around once again. This does not spell we want you back, Mason, to me. No, it absolutely does not. Yeah. Now, one of 2 things happened. In my best guess here, in my best educated opinion here. Number 1, either the money was too much that Mason Rudolph was asking for, and the money didn't match that Mason was willing to come down to, or number two, Mason got the gauge that this was not going to be a true competition, as we've talked about, and relates to Kenny Pickett. Yeah. That's one of those 2 things, or both of those 2 things clearly happened here. Or else Mason Rudolph would have felt comfortable. We talked about this all along, leading into Combine Week and the week before that. Mason Rudolph was going to have to vet whether he was going to get a legitimate chance to compete to start at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024, or else the likelihood of him re-signing was going to go down. He could have gotten that gauge, and it's very possible that he did. I mean, look, just read the tea leaves of what's happened the last 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, okay? Mason Rudolph was told, you're not good enough, when the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett in the first round in 2022, excuse me. And then, like, all of this hullabaloo came out when Kenny got healthy. It was, well, we have to have a discussion, basically, as to whether Mason's going to start or not, because Kenny's the guy. Kenny's the first-round pick. He's the golden goose. Got to put the eggs in the basket. But Mason's winning, so you got to stick with – like, it became a thing. It became a thing late last year. And even when Mason was winning, it still became a thing. How could he have confidence that it would not become a thing all of a sudden just because of 3 games in the span of 5 years? That's just the way that I see that there. Here's another one. Steelers MX says, bro, Pickett's done. Here's the thing about this, okay? And again, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face about Kenny Pickett. And this isn't me like being a defender of Kenny Pickett because I cover Pitt too and I have allegiance. No, there's nothing like that here. Mm-hmm. This is what the Steelers are telling us, okay? The Steelers have told us, Omar Khan has told us, he has faith in Kenny Pickett. The front office has faith in Kenny Pickett that they could find a way to turn Kenny Pickett around. Arthur Smith is constantly now in the ear of Kenny Pickett.
Linebacker off the market, by the way. Blake Cashman signs with the Vikings. Sorry, today's show is going to be a little bit like that because legal tampering is going on right now. So if we see that's why if you see me checking my phone, that's the reason why we're. Yep. So that to me was I didn't see this kind of money for him.
And Aaron Jones is a free agent now, by the way.
3 years, 25.5 million for Blake Cashman.
Hey,
I thought he was going to be more affordable than that, which is why I thought like he was a legitimate option for the Steelers, but not for that price.
Yep, more money, baby. Big salary cap, bigger dollars. That's how this goes. I mean, let's get right to the chase here. Barber asks, are there any chances of Mason coming back? I'm putting it at very, very low right now. Why would he?
Tell me
why would he?
Yeah.
Tell me why would he?
Well, I mean,
not you, but I'm rhetorically asking.
Yeah.
Rhetorically asking, why would he?
Mike in Texas asking where the Mickey Mouse ears.
Yeah.
We already got some the first time we went to Disney a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
No. So, Yeah, I don't see Mason Rudolph coming back and being willing to be the number 3 again. Like, I just don't see that. Rico comes in with $20 contribution. Really appreciate that. Asks, why would they bring in Russell Wilson to start since they have to evaluate Kenny Pickett and Corey? They were never going to have a champion quarterback room anyway.
I agree.
This is a stopgap move, in my opinion. This year is all about Kenny Pickett proving his worth. I mean, again, it's a situation in which you bring in Russell Wilson to have a legitimate quarterback competition in training camp and preseason. Like, I understand, like, when people hear that based off of the last 2 years, there's an immediate eye roll. Oh, okay, yeah, quarterback competition. Like, I get that. I understand that. Because the 1-2 years ago was not a quarterback competition. And I kept trying to tell people that whenever I was covering it. This is not, they're calling it one. It's not one. Mitch Trubisky is taking every single one of the first team snaps. This is not a competition here. The only competition that ever took place was eventually Kenny Pickett started splitting second team reps with Mason Rudolph. That's it. That's the only competition there was. Mitch Trubisky was the guy. He was always going to be the guy. And last year, I don't even know where anybody's even getting quarterback competition. Everybody knew Kenny was the starter.
Oh, not in training camp. Not in training camp.
Yeah, everybody knew
late in the season.
Everybody knew. Yeah, well, yeah, later on. But in terms of like training camp and preseason, everybody knew Kenny was the guy. This year, okay, you're bringing in Russell Wilson, and I agree. Even for signing for veteran minimum or whatever, he's not coming in to immediately be like, "Yep, I'm going to help support," and just be glad to sit on the bench and hold a clipboard. Like, no. I think, like, to your point that you made earlier, Russell Wilson is probably taking this deal knowing that I have enough faith in my ability that I can come in, be told it's competition, and win this starting job. And then ultimately, if in case he doesn't win it, be a professional and be a backup.
Yeah.
I really think this is going to be a competition in the truest sense of the word. I don't think anybody's being immediately handed a job. I just don't think that. Because it doesn't make sense to do that with Kenny Pickett, because if you're going to do that, you might as well have just swung for the fences and signed Kirk Cousins to a stupid freaking contract, because at least you would have given yourself a legitimate chance to be like, okay, doesn't matter what else we kind of do with the roster. We got a legitimate quarterback that can at least compete with the likes of Josh Allen and so on and so forth, you know? But
I'm going to bring this up from Thomas right here. Thomas says you'll be mad when Pickett is a backup on another team. Mason. Yeah, I'm gonna spin this a little bit. Mason Rudolph is gonna be unless it's Denver or Minnesota, they don't draft quarterbacks. Mason's probably gonna be a backup somewhere.
I agree.
That's just the reality of the situation.
I don't see anybody coming to him in free agency and being like, "Yeah, you're our starting guy."
No,
I don't see that.
Why would they? Why would they?
But you can
5 years.
But again, if you're Mason Rudolph and your performance last year was enough to be like, when somebody comes to you and says, we'll pay you X amount of money to be our unquestioned, undoubted number 2 guy, why is that a bad thing?
Sure. I get that.
You can make a really good living being a legitimate number 2 quarterback. That was a great thing for Charlie Batch. Charlie Batch is one of the most revered backup quarterbacks in Steelers history because he was reliable whenever he would go into games. It's valuable for, especially in today's NFL, watching how many backup quarterbacks and third string quarterbacks had to play last year. Getting a job as a legitimate number 2 is not a bad thing for Mason Rudolph, and I hope he gets one for sure because he deserves it.
I want to bring this one up here. GA says this means we have to go in for a quarterback and draft this year, and I brought up 2025 because that's what I'm talking about for first round pick. If this doesn't work out, if this Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett thing does not work out, and there's no long-term solution provided at the position, they have to draft a quarterback in the first round of 2025. It's that simple. It's that simple. Or they go pony up big money for another guy like Kirk Cousins, like Atlanta just did. Or they go pony up the big bucks. One of those two things will have to happen in 2025 if one of two things does not happen. Number one, Kenny Pickett does not improve to the standard that they expect. Or number two, Russell Wilson fizzles out after on this 1-year contract. One of those two things happens, and they're back in the quarterback well in 2025 again. And they have a clean slate. Kenny Pickett's in the final year of the deal. They don't pick up the 5th-year option. Wilson's out the door. They likely draft a quarterback day 3 this year. And then they have a clean slate at the position. And you know what? Having a clean slate oftentimes is better than being in the conundrum and the carousel and being the Cleveland Browns list of jerseys on the back. It's just, or list of names on the back of the jersey. It's that simple. It's that simple. Don't be in purgatory. with this position. You never want to be in purgatory with this position. Be in heaven or be in hell. And if you're in hell, find a way to get into the heaven of that position. Do not be in purgatory with this position. And in my opinion, at best, what I think this does is it brings that out of Kenny Pickett and he becomes the guy they envision him becoming, and then they proceed with him. At worst, this puts him in quarterback hell. That's what this does for me. And I think it's more likely than not at this stage that this puts them somewhere in between purgatory and hell with the position. That's what I just think happens. And we're sitting here a year from now talking about the draft, talking about what options are in this quarterback class, because it's very possible that that's what's going to happen.
Well, again, I just think I think if Kenny can't even win a job at a training camp or preseason, then he's obviously not going to be your guy, and the Steelers are going to be in that position either way. And so at that point, it's like, okay, well, then you have a year of Russell Wilson, and depending on how that goes, maybe you can bring him back for another year or two. I mean, 35 is not like he's on a rocker and he can't play anymore. Like, again, completed 66% of his passes, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. I have questions about an exact fit, but it's not like he's a complete, like, it's not like there aren't parts of his game that don't align with Arthur Smith's offense. There is, especially in play action and throwing the ball deep. So I think ultimately my gut feeling is that Russell Wilson does end up winning the job. That's what I think. And that's just because of sheer ability. Yeah. I have a lot of questions about Kenny Pickett's ability. And if that's the case, then okay, then you move on from Kenny. You don't pick up his 5th-year option. You still keep him for the 4th year, and maybe Russell, Wilson comes back for a 2nd year, and then that's your thing, and you continue to try to address quarterback in the process. And so, yeah,
I'm gonna say 2 things that people are gonna like. Number one, AE444 says we're already in QB purgatory, questioning my comment on it. Yeah, the Steelers are. That's what I mean. But I'm talking about 2025. I'm talking about next year. I'm talking about the long-term ramifications of Russell Wilson coming to Pittsburgh. That's what I'm talking about. I know they're in quarterback territory. That's why they signed Russell Wilson, because they're in quarterback purgatory. That's why they signed Russell Wilson. And look, Douglas pointing out the obvious. The Steelers have been screwed since Ben left. Why is that? Here's why.
Prepare for it.
They prepared for it horribly. Horrible preparing for Ben leaving. They never grew Mason to be the guy, the incumbent, if you will, for when Ben left. They were not positioned to draft one. They were technically. They got the first one on the board in that draft, but it was a bad quarterback draft class. They made bad preparations. They did not financially get ready for it. They did not financially do anything to position themselves to sign a big lucrative a quarterback to a big lucrative contract. And by the way, how does the Steelers get out of quarterback purgatory? They pony up 5 years, $180 million, like the Falcons just did for Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. The Steelers are in no position to do that right now. Look at how everything's structured. Look at how this team with the salary cap is structured. Look at where the money goes. It goes to the defense. The money goes, guys. We tried to explain this months ago, weeks ago. This is how the Steelers are financially structured. This is how it works. Business in that building works on this. The quarterback is cheap. Therefore, they can afford big money elsewhere. It's not the reverse. It's not the reverse. They have to flip everything. They have to flip their entire model to sign a Kirk Cousins, to go pay the big money for the free agent. And when they can't, this is what you do. You have to try to make these solutions work. And yeah, Justin says Pickett isn't developing. At a certain point, you have to draft a quarterback in the 1st round and try to develop him to be your franchise guy. And when it doesn't work out, this is where you are. Yeah. This is what happens.
Well, it's not that they didn't try. They could have. I think they should have done, like, in terms of looking back at like how they didn't prepare for life after Ben. I think they should have made a more concerted effort to groom Mason Rudolph to be the guy behind Ben. And for whatever the reason is, there are some people that think it was because Ben didn't want to didn't want to help or anything like that. Whatever the reason is, it wasn't done properly.
No.
That's what I'm getting into. I'm not getting into any kind of like who played the political game and behind the scenes. I'm not getting into that. All I'm saying is that wasn't done. And then, Ben retires, and then, okay, they sign Trubisky, former, top 5 overall pick. They take another quarterback in the first round. So you got 2 first-round quarterbacks on your roster. I think they tried to do that. Obviously, Trubisky didn't work out. And then Kenny Pickett so far doesn't look like a surefire. If he takes a bigger step forward last year, if he's more consistent from the pocket, if he shows more poise from the pocket, and I'm not again, doesn't need to see like this gigantic leap from year 1 to year 2. But if you see something where you can be like, okay, it's happening less and less often of him leaving early pockets and getting himself into trouble and getting himself injured by doing those things, or even hurting the team by, getting behind the chains too often or whatever else. If that doesn't happen and he does take a bigger step, I don't think the Steelers are looking to get a Russell Wilson type to compete with Kenny in year 3. I think they continue to give the keys to Kenny to be like, yeah, continue to drive the car, dude. Like, you took a jump from year 1 to year 2. Now we expect you to take another jump from year 2 to year 3. And I think the Steelers are in a situation right now where it's like, we don't want to just throw away a first-round quarterback, but at the same time, you haven't shown enough where we can just willy-nilly give you the job. We got to have something that can help us compete in case you just kind of don't do, if you kind of just stay the same guy again.
Yeah.
And so I understand this move from that perspective, especially because it also comes with almost no cost. I mean, veteran minimum for a quarterback. I mean, dude,
I'm good with that.
It's and so,
I'm great with that.
I think that's why this move makes more sense than I think people want to give it credit for. But there are some other issues, and again, I'll get into a lot of that, like in terms of X's and O stuff in Chalk Talk this week. But I think overall, dude, we're already at a half hour. Jeez.
I know. It's a big day today. Busy day today. We haven't even gotten to any of the other stuff. But yeah. Big busy day today. Look, like at 1.2 million, fine. Okay. If that's but here's the thing for me. And I reiterated this. I'll reiterate this for what I said at the beginning of the show. And Crystal, thanks for the 5 gifted. If you got one of those, please shout out Crystal. Give her a thank you. Here's the thing. This is what it has to happen for me. This has to be the thing that kicks Kenny Pickett in the butt and gets him going. This has to be the thing because you need a long-term solution at the position. How long does Russell Wilson work for? Now, he's on a 1-year contract. That's not to say they can't re-sign him after, in the next offseason. Like, theoretically speaking, one of 2 things happens, okay? And it all branches from the battle in training camp. Wilson wins the job, and Pickett's done in Pittsburgh, basically. Yeah. Or Pickett wins the job, and he improves to a desired level, and they have at least some form of an answer, a step of that answer. I think with the Kenny Pickett answer, for him being a long-term solution at quarterback, 2 things have to happen. Actually, 3. Number 1, he has to beat Wilson in the camp battle, if it's a true battle, which we're pretty sure it is. Number 2,
I'm being told it is. So
number 2, he has to play well in the 2024 season. He has to play well. He has to show that he has developed, which is going to be tough because now he's under a new offensive coordinator. Number 3, he has to prove to at least the level of earning that 26 to 30 million projected 5th-year guarantee. He has to show that he is worth that market price. And the Steelers are going to do their homework. Omar Khan and company are going to do their homework. They're going to see what quarterbacks are worth this money. How does it compare to how Kenny played? Does Kenny play on that level, on market value, so to speak, with respect to the rest of the league of the quarterbacks that are going to get that kind of money? And if he does, all right, pick it up, that 5th-year option. If not, in my opinion, you're back in the draft in the 1st round for a quarterback. Yeah. That's how I see this playing out. Like just sitting here in the middle of March, the day after we learn of Russell Wilson signing, those are the 2 avenues I see this thing playing out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm seeing a lot of comments about some back and forth about the fits and everything like that, and obviously the one thing I'm kind of relieved about is there's no more speculation on, is it going to be Russell Wilson, or is it going to be Justin Fields, or is it going to be Kirk Cousins, or is it going to be, it's just going to be about, okay, well, who's going to be the starter? Is it going to be Russell Wilson or Kenny Pickett? And especially if Mike Tomlin or whoever else gets behind the podium and says, yeah, it's an open competition, then, the only way this gets nipped in the bud is if something changed and Mike Tomlin gets behind the podium whenever they introduce Russell Wilson, and he's like, Russ is our guy. That's the only way this changes. And so,
yeah,
Douglas brings up a good question is like, do you guys see Pickett asking for a trade? The only way I would possibly see that is if what I just kind of played out, described plays out. If Mike Tomlin gets behind the podium whenever they're introducing Russell Wilson and they go, yeah, Russ is our guy. He's number one. And Kenny is going to try to learn, whatever. And then Kenny could be like, yeah, I kind of want out. I want a different situation where I feel like I can grow better. That would be the only way I could see that happening. But in terms of, if he's being told it's a straight competition, why would Kenny want to be traded from that? That should be Kenny's motivation to be like, okay, fine. You can bring in whoever you want. I'm going to win the job. That I think that's what the Steelers want to see from Kenny. If this really is a competition, they don't want to see Kenny be like,
quit,
like
throw the towel in.
Yeah, they want to see him be like, okay, that's cool. I'm still going to win the job. Doesn't matter. That I think that's what they want to see. You could be like, all right, I like that, Moxie. Now just proved on the field.
By the way, I've seen a lot of internet slander and memes about Kenny, like the memes about like Kenny saying I'm done here, or just not like serious talk, but like just like theoretically saying, oh, he's probably upset about this, he's probably crying over this. Couldn't be any further from the truth. Like, and this is not me trying to defend Kenny or the Pitt, Pitt goggles or any of that. Like, that's just kind of who Kenny is. Like, just from getting to know him and talking to him and having conversations with him, he's a super competitive guy.
He's very competitive.
He's not going to ask for a trade. He's going to take this and do his best with the situation he's in. Yeah. He's going to embrace this situation, I feel. And again, not Kenny Pickett goggles, not Pitt goggles, none of that. I went to Syracuse. Why would I have Pitt goggles? Look, this is just the situation the Steelers are in. This is the situation that you get in when you don't pick the right quarterback out of the draft, when you have to pick the right quarterback out of the draft. This is not the first team to go through quarterback purgatory. This is not the first team to have to
Steelers did it.
Have to traverse through this. They have.
Yes. Steelers did it.
Yes, it's not the first time.
The gap between history. Bradshaw and Ben was at times very painful.
Right.
The 80s were very forgettable for the Steelers. The 90s were memorable because the defense was so great. And obviously, the running game, Barry Foster in the early 90s, Jerome Bettis in the mid to late 90s. But yeah, no, it's hard to win without a legitimate quarterback. It just is. And, the Steelers are in what they're in right now. And so the situation that they want to be in is to try to get the most they can out of the position. And the way that they're going about that right now is to try to give Kenny Pickett every opportunity to take the leap forward that he needs to take. Who signed where?
I just saw a trusted reporter actually get got by a fake account. Beware of deep fakes, folks. It's also deep fake season as much as it is free agent season. I'll share the info. I'll share the info with Chris and see if we get that matchup. Oh boy, no deep fakes. Can't say that one. That's bad. All right, let's run through a few real quick. We have about, 5 minutes or so before we absolutely have to run. A few ones. Number one, Mitch Morse visited with the Steelers on Friday, the Bills center. He is now going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. So the Steelers swing and miss on Mitch Morse, 2-year deal for him in Jacksonville. T. Higgins reportedly asked for a trade out of Cincinnati after they said they would use a franchise tag on him. Big running back movement today. DeAndre Swift to the Bears, Tony Pollard to the Titans, and Saquon Barkley will be going to the Eagles. That is a big swing on the running back market. Defensive tackle money. Wow. Christian Wilkins. $110 million, 84.75 guaranteed over 4 years. Big money for him. Couple centers moving as well. Cushenberry, the former Bronco, he's on the move. He is going to Tennessee. And there was one more. Biotish. Tyler Biotish is going to the Commanders, the former Cowboy. So a couple really important positions there for the Steelers.
Sean Murphy-Bunting is also off the market too at cornerback. Probably one of the more affordable cornerbacks on the roster or on the market. So Sean Murphy-Bunting signing elsewhere, There haven't been a lot of cornerbacks gone today so
Nope.
far.
Quiet so
that's
far.
inside linebackers pretty quiet so far. Blake Cashman obviously got paid, and but there's still players out there. I expect this. Kind of expected the Steelers. This is probably a good way to wrap today. We've talked a lot about Russell and Kenny today. So
as no one says here, guess the Steelers are sitting on our hands at free agency. I don't think that's what they're doing.
No, I think they're being patient. Listen, the Steelers they've got some decent cap space. Depending on where you want to look, they've got anywhere between 26 to 28 million in cap space, minus the 1.2 million that they're paying to Russell Wilson. So they've still got 24 to 20 or 25 to 27 million in cap space right now. So it's a decent amount of cap room. They can definitely do some things. But there are a lot of other teams out there that have way more cap space, and the Steelers, I think, are letting those big guys, those big money guys, like, okay, let's get these guys off the market. Then let's start figuring out, okay, let's see how the market falls after some of these guys are gone.
Yeah, let the dominoes fall first.
Yeah, I think because Steelers aren't signing Christian Wilkins, they weren't signing Kirk Cousins for that kind of money. They, let's just call a spade a spade. The Steelers, as active as they've been in free agency the past couple of years, they haven't been active at the top of the market. They've been more in the middle tiers because the Steelers would rather use free agency to spread out their how they allocate the cap over multiple positions, so that by the time the draft comes up, they've got all their holes covered.
Yeah,
there are no glaring holes left. Yes, there's probably still some positions of need that they could still upgrade in the draft, but if you had to go into the NFL season, you've got quality bodies there. That's what the Steelers want to do in free agency, is to have they want to have center upgraded now. They want to have cornerback, safety, inside linebacker. I expect all of those positions to get addressed throughout the free agency period, so that by the time the draft comes up, they can then literally go into each round best player available, which is the way you should go anyway. So it doesn't surprise me that we haven't seen anything yet. Now, granted, we're barely coming up on 4 hours of the legal tampering period beginning. So, I'd be a little shocked if I don't see anything today. But it wouldn't surprise me completely either. So we'll see. We got a ways to
go. John says, let's go get Justin Simmons. That's a name I really like. It's a name I really like.
If they were to spend top dollar on any guy, that's probably one of the most likely guys. Just because safety is not as expensive as some of the other positions.
Any of the other positions. I think, to be honest with you, I think this also shores up one thing. I think this is going to lean tackle in the draft. I think it's pretty clear at this stage. It's going to be tackle or center in the first round with 20. The tackle class is so deep. The tackle class is insane right now. Like the market for the rookie tackles is so high. And like if Jackson Powers-Johnson or Zach Frazier are their guys, okay. But it feels like tackle is going to be the pick. Like based on a few things. Number one, just what I experienced at the combine. Number two, how deep the class actually is. Number three, like I feel it would be more likely the Steelers get a free agent center over a free agent tackle. And obviously it's only Monday and free agency hasn't started yet. Again, I think they prioritize Frazier over Powers-Johnson at this stage. And what that would mean is he would be more of a target in the second round if they don't move up than the center position would be in the first round. If they went tackle center in the first 2 rounds of the draft, great. 2 positions of need, 2 potential literal cornerstone pieces for that offensive line to go along with Broderick Jones. Okay, good. But I think at this stage, as we enter free agency week, that tackle is the preferred position with the 20th pick in the draft.
No. All right. Well, we got to run. Listen, I got to run. I got to go get my kids from school. So, it's an exciting day for sure. Just free agency, beginning. Obviously we will touch on this Russell Wilson signing plenty. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it more tomorrow. Probably talk more about it Wednesday, and we'll get even more and pretty much until we actually get, him behind a podium along with Mike Tomlin or whoever else. And there's my alarm. There's going to be a lot of speculation on how this is going to play out, but it's I'm interested, man. I'm interested to see how this plays out. I'm interested to see how Omar Khan continues to address the roster. Quarterback is the most important position on the roster. They took care of that already. So now let's just see what happens.
Time for the dominoes to fall. We'll be locked in as much as we can this week on the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com. So that's where you'll want to read everything. We're updating all the relevant signings that we can do in the meantime. And this week is certainly going to be a very busy one for all of us. I'm not sure if there's a remote show. I think DK just landed in Ottawa.
Yeah, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say no.
Right. I think he just landed in Ottawa, and I haven't heard anything about it today. So I guess we'll see at 4 o'clock in about 15 minutes. But Chris and I will be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports, live on YouTube, later on playback, where podcasts are found, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. And remember, again, bookmark the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com. You'll want to check that out. Obviously, if you don't have the app downloaded, Apple Podcasts, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, those are the places that you want to download it and turn on those notifications for Steelers. Anytime a big signing or anything happens with respect to the Steelers, we are pushing alerts out, and those go right to your phone, right to your tablet, right to your mobile device in real time. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Chris, and this has been the Southside Beat. Have a good rest of your Monday, everybody. We're back. I'm healthy. He's back from vacation. Nice tan. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace, everybody.